Today we're gonna jump right in, man, and just kind of talk about a couple of things around your career, your journey, and not just your journey as playing football, but your journey as an analyst. And so, if you could just kind of take us through a little bit of your journey, making that transition from, being a high draft pick, having an injury, and then making that transition into the career that you're in now. I think it's going to be a good way to really dig into those intangibles.
Well, I never thought I would do media. I mean, I didn't, Chris, it's kind of us versus them at some points in your career because, they come at you at different angles and you're trying to conceal information and not give them information about who you're playing and what the keys are to victory and stuff like that. And so I think it's a weird dynamic that exists. And then you see guys in that profession too that attack kids for no reason or uninformed opinions. And I'm just like, man, I never cared for that too much. But, my career didn't go near as well as I wanted to. It was, if you blinked, you missed it. And so my second season, I get hurt. I break my neck. And it's over like that. And then I'm in a halo and in a neck brace for an extended 2-year period of rehab that was really long and really boring at times. And one thing that I did was I watched a lot of football and watched the TV and I literally would debate with the guys on the screen. And I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, what are you talking? And so I remember I was about 6 months away from having to make a decision if I wanted to play again because I could have pushed the envelope but I would have been at more risk than anybody else because of my screws and my plates and stuff in my neck. And called my agent. I'm like, hey man, I think I want to do the commentating thing. He was like, did you go to school for that? And I said, absolutely not. He said, well, why do you want to do it? I'm like, well, I'm loud, I'm obnoxious, I'm opinionated. Like, I think I'm always right. Like, I feel like I check a lot of these boxes to get involved. And so that's kind of how it started. And I just love football. And I've had football, in my veins since I was 4 years old. And just the thought of not having it is kind of scary. And I'm a high school football coach now and love every second of it. And I just love covering the game. And I love looking at film and projecting and predicting and seeing things where people have advantages. And I'm just a nerd when it comes to football. And I cannot watch a game. Chris, last year, I didn't do anything TV-wise because I just got fired. And my wife literally looked at me at one point and was like, baby, you need to do something because I don't care. Like, you keep sharing all these opinions and you watch the game and you're saying this is important, this is important. And she's like, I don't care about any of that. And so this year I was like, all right, I'm going to do something to get these opinions out, and never thought I'd ever do YouTube either, nor do I know really how it works, honestly. But I have a channel and literally just talk ball and no fluff, no crud, no anything else besides talking matchups and recaps and stuff like that of just, studying tape and loving the game. So that's the quick synopsis of how we got where we're at.
Well, man, if I can remember anything, the thing about you was that tenacity and that loud and opinionated person. Being down at IMG when we would go and start to train, just walking to the training room, there was always a competition. How many steps is it going to take to get there? How can you dribble this ball while walking and still get the amount of steps you get there? I mean, it was always a competition. And so I could imagine, you being able to take that energy over to becoming one of the, well-respected analysts in the game. And to flip that switch, how difficult of a decision was it for you to say, hey, I'm giving up ball from an injury to go pursue something that I have no idea how I'm ever going to do it?
Yeah, I definitely didn't go, hey, I'm going to college game day. Like, that wasn't an option right away. Like, it was, where do you go? And I started doing SEC Gridiron Live, and there were recaps for SEC football games on Fox Sports, local Fox Sports, that nobody knew what it was, and my mama wasn't watching, so I know y'all weren't watching. But Chris, I'll never forget. I looked at myself and I was like, all right, you're a freshman in college again. Like, you got to earn this. You don't deserve anything. And you got to put your head down and you got to work. And so I remember looking in the mirror and being like, all right, like, what do I do with my hands? Like, what do I do with my face? Like, because I'm so all over the place. And I'll never forget when I started working with people, they're like, slow down. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is the way I talk. Like, this is how I do it. And so I had to learn, like, to slow down. And then, you have all these statements and things in your head, but like you have to back them up, and you have to, be eloquent. And by the way, you know this better than anybody. Defensive linemen aren't eloquent. Like, we are the dumbest players on the field. We are see ball, get ball. That's why we play defense. Like, for instance, the offensive line are smart. They have plays. They know where they're going. Defense are like, yeah, go get the ball and go as hard as you can. So definitely some growing pains and a thought process that had to change. Like, how do I get better today in this area? And I am. That's one of my biggest gifts and one of my biggest downfalls. Like, I have a competitive problem, and I've grown over the years to get better, because otherwise my kids would never do anything with me. So I've learned how to harness it a little bit, but I ain't giving them nothing either. They're going to have to earn it. So it's been a strength, but it's also been one of the many reasons why I've gotten in altercations and arguments with my wife and board games and stuff that you're like, dude, chill out. So it's definitely been a learning curve throughout the years too. And kids have definitely helped me fix that a little bit.
Man, where did all this competitive piece come from? You mentioned your mom just a second ago. I mean, did you grow up in a competitive family? Did you have older brothers? I mean, tell us a little bit about your upbringing around that.
The only thing I can tell you, man, is that's from God. Like, because my dad is one of the least competitive people I know. My dad's 5'10", $185, and just chill as it gets. My mom is not the same. She is a lot more fiery, a little bit more competitive, but like, I had it at a young age, and I was the type that was obnoxious. And if I was losing, I'd throw the board game over, and just, so it was definitely something that was in me that I've definitely harnessed along the way. I'll never forget, Chris, like my buddy Russ Tanner, who played center at Georgia. He tells this story all the time. Me and Russ would go to these different camps at Georgia Tech, and you can relate because you were just talking about when we trained at IMG, but he was like, we were two top prospects that kept going to these different camps. And he said, you literally were looking at me in stretch lines, and you would look like how much I stretch, and you would make sure you stretched further and beat me. And so I don't know where it comes from. I do know that it's a good thing as long as you can be respectful and not be a clown and a turd when things don't go your way, which is what I've had to slowly learn throughout time. But my daughter is exactly the same way. And so I can see how, she has that, and my son isn't the same way. And so I do think God gives us different gifts and different things that we can really latch onto that make us unique in our own different ways.
Yeah. And what moment for you did you realize that I have to learn how to really control my competitive so I don't come across as a jerk?
Well, here's the problem. The problem was when I was younger, I didn't care if I came across as a jerk. And because I wasn't trying to be a jerk, but I also understand that I'm going to be misunderstood. And so that's okay. But I think when you have a family and you treat your wife in a certain way, like, it's very clear, and the Bible's very clear, like it's God first, it's your spouse next. And I'm supposed to treat her in a manner that the way that God treats the church. And so, like, I had to learn, like, you have to show restraint. Now, that doesn't mean you don't care. That doesn't mean you don't want to win. But I did realize too with my babies is, like, they didn't want to play anything with me when I was younger. Like, this isn't fun. And so the ability to kind of, like me and my son now, he's 16 and he's 6'3", and he's, 215 pounds. And so he's a lot bigger now, but still, as of now, like when we play one-on-one basketball, like, I can make it as physical as I want and beat the crap out of him if I want to. But I realize he doesn't want to play with me. So right. I think I've had to learn, like, I'm not going to give him anything, but can I back it off a little bit? And my biggest thing with my kids, like, I don't talk to my kids about, like, I don't treat them and I don't expect them to have the same mentality as me. And I am way more like, hey, let's be a great teammate. Hey, let's channel our energy and our competitiveness for positivity. Like, let's do the things we can control that really make us great, not being better than everybody and having to win at all costs. Like, you try to win as much, just like the Bible talks about, you run your race to win. You do that to win, but you've got to show respect and kindness along the way and treat people good. So it's been a journey of ups and downs for sure.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And what I'm hearing in that whole message there is leadership, this competitive nature, the tenacity. Those are intangibles that you really can't you don't know where they're coming from. You can't see it, but you see it when you see that person. And I saw it right away with you the first time I met you. It's like, man, I know why this dude is one of the top DNs in the country. Because this guy, competitive nature, he never turns it off, and so that's a amazing trait to have, and also ability to try to learn how to harness it in the right way. It's also, again, God gives you what you need, and you figure out how to really manage it the right way. And so, good on you for managing that. You know, here at Team Q, the company that I have here, we focus a lot on leadership, work ethic, resilience as those intangibles. You know, from your playing experience and your analyst days, you know, what did you see those most critical intangibles that separates the good from the rest?
The work can never be sacrificed. The work is something that every leader, every person, every successful leader, there's very, very few leaders that are lazy, that are really effective, that people follow. Like, you know, there's a lot of traits in leadership that I find very, very fascinating. And that like there's, because I've been to every university in the country almost, and everybody you go in and they have the same signs, Chris. It's the same crap, just like with your companies and other companies. Everybody's got the same ability to the same information, and they have the same quotes and the same sayings. But here's the difference to me. Like when you are a leader, you lead the same every single day. You lead in the times of ups and the times of downs. Like I know exactly what's inside of your chest, no matter what the circumstances are and whatever the swirling winds that are coming. I'm always the same. I'm always consistent. I'm always punching a clock. I always work hard. Now, there is a cost with leadership that people have to understand. And this is kind of something we just touched on a little bit. Like I've learned that over the years. I didn't care if people liked me, but I wanted to be respected. And that's a cost of great leadership, because you are not going to keep everybody happy in a position of leadership. Not if you do your job effectively, because you're going to have hard conversations. You're going to have to be okay with being disliked. You're going to have to be okay with being talked about. Those are things that happen. You're going to have to make changes to people. And listen, none of us handle change great. We don't love change. So, right. You know, being liked versus respected, that kind of mindset, I think is huge. And we have to be willing to say that, but the leadership comes at a cost. Leadership comes with consistency. Leadership comes with hard work. Leadership comes with humility. Like that's the last thing, I think, the last component that I really appreciate about great leaders. Great leaders can listen to their people. That doesn't mean they acquiesce and do everything they say, but they can listen to see where they're at and meet those individual people differently. That's where I failed big time when I was younger. Not everybody is led the same way. I can't lead an ex-athlete like you, Chris, who's been talked to like a dog. Like I can talk to you like a dog. I know that. There's a lot of people that ain't been talked to like that. And you got to figure out what makes them tick, and you got to lead them in a different way. Leadership is not a one-size-fits-all package for every single person. So those are things to me in the leadership realm that are critically important that will determine whether you're successful or not.
Yeah, and you know, I think you just hit on something that's, you know, lead right into the next question that I have for you, and it's this new era that we in right now with the transfer portal, NIL, and this new wave of how to support this younger generation of athletes. You know, how important it is for coaches to truly understand the athlete now versus when we were growing up, to be able to talk to us like a dog and we still perform. This generation is different. So what are your thoughts on this era right now around those things?
It's way more different. Way more different. Good communication skills there. It's way different. It's the kids nowadays are more skilled than they've ever been because they have access to videos and things before the ages we did. And they know, like I got my son's, 16 years old, and he's known how to use his hands like really well at an elite level for a long time, because you can watch videos and you can see how to use your hands and the importance of that. And so they're more skilled, but they don't get the hard, tough, they don't do hard well anymore. And they're not asked to do hard as much, and they're inside more, and they're on video games more, and their communication is easier because I can hide behind a screen when I communicate with somebody. So I think they do less hard things, which is not good. So, I think the most important thing about this generation as a high school football coach and a leader now is they've got to know that you care about them. That's number one. They have to know that. They have to know that you've got their back and that you love them and that you matter to them. And that means you have to communicate that and you have to show that. And that means getting into their lives outside of a sport. Like, it's not just sport. And if that's all you care about, good luck. You're probably not going to be a great leader. And like for me, we play fantasy football with our defensive linemen. We have fantasy football league and we're doing trades all the time and we're text messaging back and forth all the time. So I'm getting in their lives. I have an opportunity to speak into their lives. When something happens in their lives, man, I'm reaching out to them. Like, I want to know when they get hurt, I'm reaching out to them. You know, I'm checking in on them. And so they really got to know that you care about them. And I think the biggest thing about this generation next is they got to know the why. Like, back in the day, you used to say, go dig a hole. And you'd be like, I'm going to dig a hole for your daddy. Now it's why. And so I think being able to do that, and especially as a follower of Christ, man, like my bigger thing is like, I've got to show grace, and I've got to be able to explain things and not put a stipulation on, like, you have to earn my respect or earn my love. And your performance doesn't make me love you more. Your performance doesn't make me care about you more. If you play great, that doesn't make you like you're closer to me than somebody else. Like, that's not what matters. And so I think when you teach them when you show them you love them, and when you tell them the why behind what they're doing and why they're there, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah. Now, do you think this generation of coach is starting to realize that about this generation of athlete? Because when you look at the Coach Sabans, and you look at, all the old school coaches who've done it for a long time and done it really well, those guys have made those transitions through the difficult times of, what players are needing and wanting. Do you think the coaches now are at a point where they realize that is important, more important now than it has ever been?
100%. Coach Saban and all of his schools used to say, you do not talk back. You do not say anything when I coach you or when I say something besides coach me, coach. That's what he used to say. That is not flying nowadays. You're not saying something to somebody and they're going to be like, coach me, coach. Like, I want to be coached. Like, that's not, that doesn't fly. And you've seen like the dinosaurs of this age, like the guys that have coached for a long time that lead from a position of fear and, a dictatorship type of a deal. And I would argue more dick than tater sometimes, right? Like more the first part than the second part. Like when you lead from that point, I think those guys are dying. Those guys are not around as much. And because people are more sensitive, parents are more sensitive, like, I enjoy when my daughter's basketball coach gets on her. I'm okay with that. And I'll say this. I'm also the type that, like, I don't pray, Chris, for my kids' protection. I don't do that. Like, that's not something that I do. When I pray for my kids and their future, man, I pray that God gives them the resilience for whatever they see, that they can hit it face on. And that they're okay, not that they're protected. Because I know things are going to come their way, but I want them to be able to respond like God wants them to respond, and to respond in that kind of a manner. So I think that those old school coaches are moving on, and the new school coaches are definitely adapting and understanding, but with the understanding that, like, transfer portal and NIL, and it's always changing. And so like Saban, defense, run the football. Well, okay, this ain't working no more. Like, I got to go no huddle, and I got to go up tempo, and I got to hire Lane Kiffin, and I got to score the football and be more aggressive. And so I think that it's an ever-evolving profession, just like leadership is always evolving because your clientele is evolving and changing. So I think you have to as well.
Yeah, that's well said, David. I mean, you think about we as people, we're constantly evolving. And so that's why this conversation is so important now, to get the voices who've been through a lot of different changes, to get their perspective on what's happening in the space. Because as a young kid who's having to deal with a lot, these kids have to deal with social media pressure. They have to deal with NIL, the ability to now do I make a decision to leave early? There's a lot that's happening with these kids. And so now more than ever is about planting that seed of why it's important to really be aware of yourself. Have an understanding.
And Chris, one thing to that point, and we've had this discussion in our small groups all the time. And listen, most of our kids, like especially where I live, let me put it this way. Where I live, most of our kids, they don't have real problems. Okay. Like they don't have a lot of struggles. They're not looking for food. They're not looking for transportation places. Like they've got some parents that support them, feed them, clothe them. Like they're in a good spot.
Right.
But here's a critical point for all of us parents. That doesn't mean their life isn't hard.
Correct.
Like that doesn't mean that what they're experiencing and with their classes and what they're doing all this for the first time. So just because they have more, social media is real for a lot of parents, especially the ones that allow their kids to be on it. And like that's a real thing that they're going to have to deal with. But their studies and balancing sports and balancing their life and in the world that they live in. Like this is the first one they've had, and this is the first opportunity and the only one they have. So that doesn't mean that it's, you don't realize how easy your life should be. I get it. Like I want them to appreciate what they have, but I also want to understand as a parent that like, I got to understand that I got to pour into them and show them how blessed they are and how awesome that their life is at the same time working through like, all right, we got to make sure that we plan and we get ahead and we do our homework and we do X, Y, and Z. You got a game tonight. Like, did you think about this? And so I just think that's something that I think people need to understand. It might not be like extremely hard at consistency, like in considering the world and the standards and what everybody's going through, but it's the first time they're doing it with emotions and with the busyness and the stuff that they got going on.
Yeah, I mean, and as a parent, it takes you a while to get there. I mean, especially growing up how we grew up, it takes time to figure those things out. And so I'm finally at a place where I start to realize I can't parent my kids how I grew up in Mississippi. Each one of them are different, and we have a better lifestyle than I grew up in, and so that's not their fault. And so how do we meet them where they are and really help them understand, especially when the environment has changed so much where they're not getting those reps that we were getting. We're talking about mental performance. We were climbing trees, riding our bikes all over the neighborhood. Our kids are not getting those reps. And so they can watch a lot of videos. They have a lot of information. They can get all of these pieces that they're looking for, but the reps still matter. And so we as parents have to make sure that those reps are important because it is their first time, like you said, them doing it. And so making sure that they're getting those reps the right way. And so I commend you and your growth and where you are in your life. And so this is why I'm so excited to have you talk about these things because you get it, and we just want other parents and other young athletes to make these pieces important to them, that your intangibles are more important now than your athletic ability. Don't get me wrong, that's important. But how you show up and understanding yourself from a communication, understanding yourself from coachability and character standpoint, those pieces are really important, just as important as that.
And so we've got to parent and coach from that perspective. So what does that look like? Like I'm a big, I need steps to do this. Here's the thing. When you're a parent and the first thing you do is talk about, man, that was a great hit. That was a great home run. Like that was a great shot. That touchdown was awesome. And I think naturally we want to do that. We want to reward our kids and talk positively to them. But when we do that, and that's the first thing we talk about, so now like your performance is what we're supporting. Your great performance is what we're saying is awesome. Like we don't do that in our house. Like that's not what we do at all. We don't talk about buckets. We don't talk about, because I want my kid, I'm like, listen, whether you scored 30 or 0, I love you the same. Like, I don't care. And there's going to be sometimes when you play a game when you're going to miss. Sometimes you're going to play a game when you're not going to play at your best. But like you're going to miss plays and opportunities. But did you try as hard as you could? Were you a great teammate? Like those are the things that we want to like support and affirm as opposed to the success. Like it can't be performance based. And when we do that, that's why they're performance based. And so if that is how you want to parent and you want to parent from a standpoint of performance based, I can tell you this, it's a miserable life, man. That's a miserable life for a kid to always be doing this. And I see it all the time in youth league sports, man. Kid pitching, bam, right to his dad. Yeah. Kid playing basketball, bam, right to his dad. I'm like, you're not doing that on purpose, and I get it, but look at your kid. Your kid's like, crap. Like, was it good enough? Was it good enough? And man, I think that's a hard standard to live up to, and it's not much fun.
No, not at all. Well, David, we come into a segment that I like to do. It's called a 2 minute. 2 minutes different than 2 minute going into fourth quarter, 2 minute. This is 2 minute going into halftime. So I'm going to throw you a couple softballs here. Okay. Favorite moments in college sports?
When I was in college?
When you were playing.
Okay. winning an SEC championship for the first time in 30 years at the University of Georgia.
Man, I would have lost that bet because I would have said you was going to go with that strip sack in the end zone against. I think it was South Carolina.
Good too.
At least that was my favorite play for you. All right, toughest player you had to face.
Sean Andrews from Arkansas, absolute big freak show of an animal.
Oh man!
In college, in pros, Jonathan Ogden, hands down, that dude was a unicorn, a freaking species of an athlete that I've never seen. 6'10", 6'11", like 350 feet like a ballerina. It's like, what do you want me to do with that? Like, what am I supposed to do with that?
Oh, two great ones there. Two great ones. All right, if you had to go back and talk to your young self, what advice would you give your young self?
I think the biggest gifts that God's shown me over the years is to be still and to find opportunities to like I had a one-way relationship with God. Like when I had time, I would talk to him. And I think what I learned over time through breaking my neck and hard times is like be still, talk to him. Get in peaceful spots, like lean into your faith more and more, be more empathetic and sympathetic to what others are going through around you. Because I think as you get older, you start to see it and you start to touch by so many situations of people going through struggle and hard things. And you're like, man, now that you've felt it, now I have empathy. Now I have sympathy that I can help people around me. So I think that would be a message I would send to my younger self to be a better human.
I love that. Well, Dave, thanks for being a sport on that, man. I try to give you some soft tosses there, and you cleared them well. As we start to really look at your journey, I would be remiss if I didn't touch on your faith. I remember when we were down at IMG, we had a swear jar. We had to put money on it. If you swear, you had to put money in there, and that all tied back to your faith. And we would, us guys who like to go out and party, I think because we was of age, the right age, would come in and you would be sitting there reading your Bible. Can you take me through, how critical your faith has been through your journey, through your career, and how has it helped you through your highs and lows throughout your process?
I mean, it's the greatest decision I've ever made. And, I follow Jesus, and that's something that's extremely important to me. Something that I got as a senior in high school, by the way, Chris. I didn't grow up in faith, but I had a neighbor that invited me to come to a lock-in and to come play sports all night, basically stay up late. I'm like in. And then I had a teacher that lived his life in a way that was of influence to me. I'm like, what does he do? And he was a believer. And then so I came to faith, and then I got to go to the University of Georgia with Coach Rick and plug into FCA. And so just continued to grow and to learn. And just, I realized that like the Bible is my blueprint. Like the Bible is my playbook, Chris. We had a playbook and it said where every coverage and everything situation, this is what you do. And I've realized that throughout my life. Like God gave me this love letter that's every situation I'm in, he's given me a way out and a way to handle it. Like, and we got some tough times going on in our world and all kinds of craziness that you're like, what is the answer to that? Well, I can point you to something usually in a passage in scripture that God handles that. And so I think, it's been my most important steadying force. God has been with me through my ups and through my downs, and raising a family now and growing and continue to have ups and downs. And like that next storm in your life is coming. Like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so I think God's been my steadying force, that when something's happened, man, I love that I serve a God that's for me. And so in all these situations, Chris, break your neck. Oh, that should be horrible. No. I would, if you told me I could have a 15-year Hall of Fame NFL career or break my neck and be done, I'm taking the break my neck, because I learned at 22, man. I learned at 22 how to handle some real adversity in your life and what that looks like, and how to run towards God instead of away. Because you got two choices in hard times, man. I either run away and find happiness in something else, or I run straight to him. And I've run straight to him, and he's taught me how to be a better man and how to be a better husband and a better dad. And so those adversities, like God's going to allow those things in our lives because it's the only way he can teach us what we need us to learn. Because when everything's good, man, we don't rely on anybody besides ourselves. I got this. I got this. Oh, everything's good. Everything's good. I got this. But then when that tragedy hits, man, Damar Hamlin is the biggest thing I've ever, one of the biggest examples I've ever seen. Like, you saw a bunch of gladiators on a football field that are a bunch of bad mother shut your mouths. They are the baddest dudes on the planet. Like, they are the baddest dudes, most physical dudes on the planet. They were scared to death. They were absolutely scared because they knew this man was dying on a football field. And every single one of them hit their knees and prayed. Every single one of them, because they knew they were at that point where, like, dude, I got no answer. I can't do anything.
Absolutely.
And I know innately that I can feel this tug inside of me that he can. And that was one of the cooler things that I've seen. Like, and the Bible talks about every knee will bow, right? And every tongue will confess. And I think that was a great example of that. Like, when life gets really, really hard, man, like, run to God. And if you're in a tough situation, go get yourself to church, man. Like, go be around believers that are going to lift you up, that are going to pray for you, and watch what happens, man. Like, don't take my advice for it. Like, watch what will happen to your life. And I think you'll grow and you'll start becoming the best version of you.
Man, I tell you, you've been an inspiration, and I've always admired how you stay steadfast with your faith. And as I watch you through your ups and downs, and to see you always come out on the other side with a positive mindset and with growth has been an inspiration to me. And so I really appreciate how you showing up, and you may not even realize that, we don't talk all the time, but I keep track and watch you in every aspect of life, because I know you're going to bring 100% faith and 100% of you to the party every single time. And so I really appreciate watching you throughout those processes.
Thank you, brother.
And man, I tell you, I asked you a question about your advice to your younger self. Now the question is going to flip that, is give some advice to this younger generation of athlete who's going through, tough times, who's trying to figure themselves out, trying to figure out how to make a transition to college, make a transition to a professional league, make a transition out of the league to a new career. If you had to give some of these young people some advice, what would that look like and sound like?
Well, how do you climb a mountain? One step at a time. And I think that is so important, that you take daily steps. Like, you want to get exponentially better at anything, do it daily. Like, do little bits of it every single day. And over a year of doing that for 365 days, man, you look up and you're going to be a different person. And here's the deal. If you want to grow in leadership, if you want to grow in sports, whatever that is, your alignment directly reflects your assignment and your outcome. So if I want to be a great 3-point shooter and the goal's right there and I'm shooting this direction, I'm going to suck, right? Like, it's not going to happen. But if I aim at that goal, man, and I make a goal and I'm like, bro, I'm chasing that every day. What does today look like to get me down the road? Like, forget tomorrow, forget long term. Like, today, what am I going to do to make me better, to more accomplish those goals and those dreams? And I think we get so big focused, and we get so like live your age, man. Like, live the age you are. Be where your feet are. Be great where you are, not always pointing towards, well, I'm not there yet. I need to be there. I need to be there. I need to be there. We look around and we compare. That ain't your journey. That ain't where you need to be. And I'll never forget, Chris, like, before I was the 3-time All-American and a first-round draft pick, I got to the University of Georgia. I changed positions 3 times in a year, 3 times in less than a year. And I'll never forget learning defensive line, get off the ball with low pad level, good hands, short first step. Like, dude, it was too much, man. It was too much to literally focus on all at one time. So I'll never forget, I looked at my GA and I was like, hey, man, like, I'm going to get off the ball as fast as possible with a short first step. That's it. Like, I'm not going to be great with my hands. I'm not going to be great with my pad level, but I'm going to master that. I mastered that. Then I could master my pad level. Then I could master my hands. Then I could slowly start to add on to it. That is your life in a nutshell, man. Every day, focus on something I'm going to do. I love to text myself the night before. My non-negotiables. I love to make weekly goals. I am not finishing this week without doing this every single day. So whether it's spiritual, whether it's family, whether it's work, whatever it is, man, alignment will directly affect your assignment and the direction you're going to go.
Wow, man, that's well said. Trust the process. Trust the process. D, man, this has been a fantastic, interview with you. but more so just impactful for me just to hear it again, because as a leader of a company, as a father of kids, to hear another man speak so powerful about his stance on who he is in life, but his highs and his lows, but also share a message for others to hear that will hopefully change their lives, because this definitely is impacting me right now. And so I really appreciate you. As we start to wrap up here, and I really like to end, this podcast, being that we're talking about intangibles, focusing and ending it on intangibles. And if you can give me one intangible that sticks out to you that has really carried you through your professional career, your collegiate career, but then also that professional as an analyst, what would that intangible be? Just one.
Well, I'm going to give you a saying that will apply to the intangibles that will change your life if you choose to let it. Okay. I'm going to give you 50, 40, 10. All right. So 50% of the people at your work, at your company, at your deal, at your sport, whatever it is, you can outwork. Like, you can show up every day with a good attitude. You can outwork. Okay. 40% of the people you can out prepare. You can out organize. You can out detail. Like, you can work 50% of the time. You're going to have to work really, really hard, show up, do the work, make it hard. 40% alignment affects assignment. Like, if I'm climbing that mountain one step at a time and I ain't paying attention, and all of a sudden I get to the top, I climb the wrong mountain, I screwed up, right? Like, I'm in the wrong spot, right? So 50% outwork, 40% out detail, out mental, out prepare. And then 10%, you left with all those people that already did the 50, that already did the 40. You left with a bunch of dogs. Like, you got to outwork. You got to out adversity. Like, adversity will come. Losses will come. What does your response look like, dude? I don't care. I'm less concerned with the older I get with what happens to me. I'm way more concerned with my response. What does my response look like? I am a person that lives out standards over feelings. Here is my standard. I don't give a dang about my feelings. I don't care what I feel today, the ups and downs, X, Y, and Z is going on. I don't care. I live to this standard. That's where I'm going to be, no matter what the feelings are all over the place. So 50, 40, 10, if you'll write that down, man, and circle that 10. Like, I'm going to fight. I'm going to stab you. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to beat you and get to the quarterback, like whatever that looks like in your arena or in your realm.
That's awesome, man. Awesome. David, I really appreciate you sharing your journey, your stories. As we really, really embark on this new ecosystem, this new environment that we're in, I think this message is going to be powerful for other people to hear. Tell us, as we really close here, tell us, where can we find you? Where can I point people to really follow some of the stuff that you're doing, some of your work? Because, man, it's so powerful, and I think people should be listening.
Well, one of the things I'm doing now is I'm a motivational speaker, which is cool. And I enjoy it. I really do. And I was speaking before my commentating stuff and anything, because I loved it. I love getting in people's lives, and I love trying to challenge and motivate them. So you can go to davidpollack.com. You can go to my socials, which is David Pollack 47, and all the different ones. Love social media, huge fan. Not really, but I do want to use it for good, and I do want to use it for positivity. And so I'm trying to do that as much as possible. And then the analyst stuff, man, I go on the YouTube, whatever that looks like. It's David Pollack on YouTube. Yeah, I don't know how that works, and I'm not a great self promoter, that's for sure. But I do like to do all those things, man. But the speaking I definitely have honed in on and really started to thoroughly enjoy.
Well, David, man, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate you, my friend. I would tell you good luck this weekend, but I think we up for the challenge. So we'll see at the end of this what happens.
Just say go Dogs for me real quick, Chris. You got that in you?
Hey, David, you have a good day.
Well, I'll give you a hottie toddy.
Thanks for joining us, my friend. Thanks for
See you, brother.
Good luck, Dogs.